biggest moment of a legendary career. Phil defeats Father Time.
Welcome to Little Birdie Podcast, a unique look into the world of sports betting through the eyes of professional punters. I'm your host, Scoot, and I'm joined by the kid, MG. Mark, how are you, mate?
Good, Nico. Yourself?
Mate, I'm up and about. I'm an angry little ant this week, and everything's been going on this weekend. It was a bit of a hellish week at Little Birdie headquarters. It started off with the Lone Wolves. We dusted the big bank, Troy and Paddy. I thought they saw them really well, but there was a couple of dogs that went out to 3-length, 4-length, 6-length leads and then just got mowed down. It was just death by 1,000 cuts. It was just awful.
Yeah, we were in a lot of contests, weren't we? We led into the straight a lot. We certainly got some cheers for our bank, and then they obviously got to a point where everyone wants to bull rush to finish. No one wants to sit with the dividends. So they were last couple of races they were told to go on with it, blast out kind of thing. So a lot of seconds, but I think a lot of fun was had by all as well, and very educational too. Those boys, they're very good at calling in the run. So even though the profit and loss didn't go our way, the education going forward I think was good. So they're good boys, and they'll come back Lone Wolf 3. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think they had a bet in Albion Park to get half the dividend back, and it's run second again. So it was a bit of a filthy night, but it was a bit of a roller coaster. The punt, the races were good. The AFL was tough. A couple of sick beats there, but lefty. How good was Phil Mickelson and Big Daddy Fraser? He was bullish. Brooks Koepka pre-tournament, he's run second, and then for the Big Daddy Majors subscribers, he gave a little after third round push for Phil Mickelson. So anyone that had subscribed saved on Phil, and I definitely pressed Phil. I couldn't have Phil going into that last day, and there was a really interesting stat out there. 5 of 8 times Phil's been in the final 2 pairings, he's gone on to close out, and I think he could get about 420. I took with Top Sport on Sunday night, so it was a fantastic watch Monday morning, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it helps when you've got it helps when you're invested at Koepka at the plus 50 to 1. Yeah. So guys who watch the golf show or follow Big Daddy, they were in a good position if they'd followed through with his bets. So Mickelson was I think more an easy wager for you than your skill there. I think you were priced in to have to back him, sit back and watch. So yeah, you didn't have a sweat on the last day. Unfortunately, I just rode Koepka home and come up seconds again. So it was a bit of a tough week, but I think I got good value for my money. Just didn't show a profit for the week.
Some character building moments, and we've all taken a tumble on lock of the week. The Roosters for me and Top Rope, that's killed us, and Mark was in the driver's seat until Melbourne. Melbourne couldn't find the line, and the Adelaide Crows found the line. There's been a lot of talk about the deliberate out of bounds. AFL are finally owning up to a couple of errors. The deliberate out of bounds and the Nick Holman from the Gold Coast Suns, he's now got off his 2 weeks, but the D's, weren't they flat?
Yeah, it didn't help the repair bill in the office downstairs. A few walls have taken a hit over the weekend. I'm not sure. The umpire was looking straight at the deliberate out of bounds and decided to not put the whistle to the mouth. Wasn't too costly, let's be honest. The charity is filthy. They've gone down by a point, and I was basically this week away from hopefully landing the magical 5K, and now we're all back to scratch again. So Top Sports continue to beat us in lock of the week, but we'll start to build the blocks again.
Exactly. Thank God we got the $10,000 in through the bulldozer for raise.org.au, and we'll have to tally up. We've done some amazing work over the last 12 months, and we'll do a bit of a tally of all the money that we've raised for charity. There's a couple of people out there that reckon we're not doing our fair bit for charity, which is absolutely crazy. There's been a major donation from Tristan, and we've tried to help, and so have the punters in the chat rooms. They've found a few winners to get us on the way. But let's have a look at the AFL round 10 results here, and we'll get the bookie wrap up on the screen. If you're listening via Apple or one of the podcast channels, I'll read it out anyway. So round 10, they went 7 of 9, the favourites at 78%. The line was 5 of 9 at 56, and the total over 6 and 9. And for the season there, we've got 65 out of 90 favourites at 72%. The line's 45 and 81 at 50%, and the overs again 48 out of 81 at 53%. It was a really tricky round for betting, and The two I launched into was the Cats, which was an absolutely horrible standard of football. And I sat in here and I was betting on the races and watching the footy with you, and I've never seen you carry on like that on a game of football. But the standard was just woeful for that long. They didn't cover the total, which was mind-boggling, and then it was just absolute horror, that match. You'd obviously invested a ton of money on the game, but gee, they had a lot of chances and just squandered.
Yeah, it was a bit of a link game, that one. We had invested in the line. We bet up early from 35 and it closed 42, so you get your chips in at the best. Also bet the over total. Started 155, closed 160, and come up just short both ways. So Geelong took too long to get in gear. Gold Coast did kick some fortunate goals. I mean, they were highly skilled, but the difference come up a goal short both ways. So it was a costly game, and didn't sit well mid-Saturday afternoon. But anyway, move on.
Collingwood turned up to play, which was interesting against Port Adelaide. There's a bit of COVID floating around the Port-Collingwood game, and Port looked like they had COVID for the first three quarters. And it was amazing the money for Collingwood, and they responded. But I was really peeved because Port got themselves into position to cover, and then I think there was like 2 or 3 holding the balls where Collingwood players spun around, and Port got the worst rub against the umpires all match, and then those final holding the balls not to let them cover, and the momentum of the game completely switched, and then Collingwood nearly pinched the game. It was crazy to see how much effect the umpiring had by not paying complete obvious holding the balls. I'm not saying that just because I'm talking through my kick, but then you've got the Grundy decision late and everyone's up in arms about that. But rewind another 5 minutes and Port should never have been in that position.
Yeah, unfortunately the umpiring is what it is. I mean, we've bashed it to death a few times this year. The AFL have actually come out and said the last 2 weeks, I think they've made a point without making an official statement that they think the umpiring's going really well. Unfortunately, both weeks they've had to admit umpire error, both potentially costing game-changing results. So I'm not sure where the AFL's at the moment. I think they might be struggling a bit.
They're all at sea.
Well, I think they might be struggling from a bit of COVID as well because they're in slow motion at the moment. They've got a lot of issues in the game. And probably just a bit cancelled out by the NRL, kind of joined them at the party. I think maybe the NRL maybe the Landys felt a bit sorry for the AFL and actually joined them, creating equal chaos. It wasn't well umpired, but Port had no excuses early. They were disgraceful.
They were awful.
I mean, Collingwood didn't play well either. They kicked 3 goals in the first 5 minutes. They started well, and then their last 3 quarters were equally disgraceful.
It's as hungry as I've seen Collingwood nearly all year, though.
Well, I just don't think they've got the power up forward to
kick a winning
score. So they just play an ugly. They basically do what Fremantle have done in previous years. They just bring it down to a level where they can compete and hopefully eke out a few wins. But I think going forward for Collingwood games, you've got to tend to back the unders as well, just because of their game style. They realise they can't kick more than about 70 or 80 points, so they just bring the game down to a level. So Port did well to scrap it out, but geez, the betting in the last 5 minutes would have been interesting because, as you said, Port were actually in front of a line. They had a chance to cover, didn't hold on, and then Collingwood had a chance to pinch it late. So live betting would have been crazy in the last couple of minutes there.
There's still massive opportunities to bet live, so make sure you got your finger on the trigger ready to go. Let's have a look at the hits and misses, where the big money has gone from last week. The Geelong line was a massive go, 35.5 to 42.5, 155 to 160 the over, so they're both misses. The Adelaide line was a hit, 30.5 into 24.5. The Western Bulldogs, 18.5 to 23.5. I think you tipped up 60 plus to your subscribers as well in that one. The Saints are just hapless at the moment. Fremantle total 154 to 132. That was a miss. The weather never really came there. West Coast Eagles 2.5 to 4.5. Wow, West Coast have been disappointing on the road, and I think it's time to jump off that wagon. Badly burnt when West Coast played Geelong on the road, and again they should have accounted for them. They look out of sync on the road. They were awful.
Yep. I just think going forward at the moment until West Coast start showing the ability to win away from home. I think they've got Carlton next in 2 weeks' time, which again looks a winnable game. Early predictions is, West Coast will probably start slight favourites in the game. So, Carlton definitely one of the sides we've opposed most of the year, but it might be a non-betting game, I think, in 2 weeks' time. Carlton, West Coast to sit out, I think.
Carlton were lacklustre against Hawthorn, I thought, in perfect conditions, which is just shows how bad the game is at the moment. But yeah, I think that at this stage I'd probably have to fancy Carlton in that one. Collingwood, they were a hit, 18.5 to 14.5. A little bit lucky there. Port didn't really turn up, as we've said. And then the Essendon line, 19.5 to 22.5. That was a hit. The Bombers, they copped a bit of criticism. Well, Ben Rutten was under fire early in the season. A lot of people doubting him as the coach. I think Essendon are going a little bit better than what they've been given credit for. They've had a couple of tough losses.
Yeah,
I think the Hawthorn game, they just lost. They were in front, had a big margin. The Sydney game.
Yeah. I think they've had 3 losses under 3 points. I think Hawthorn was a 1 point. Sydney might have been 2. So, yeah, they could easily have 2 or 3 wins the other way. They did only beat the Kangaroos on the weekend. So let's not get too excited about that. But you can only beat who's in front of you. They put 140 points on the board. They controlled the game early. They got a lot of upside. They're three new recruits. Haven't tired at all. They're playing really well. I think Cox on the wing is going to be a star. Some of the things he does, once he gets through his gears of the next year 2, year 3, he could be a real player. But their midfield's on fire.
Yeah, it is.
Parrish, Merritt, and McGrath. Right now their midfield alone could match. Probably not quite what the Bulldogs and Brisbane are doing, but geez, they're not far out. So, yeah, the Essendon supporters are getting good value for their year so far for sure. And I think I know quite a few Essendon supporters, whether that's fortunate or not, but they're generally happy, and they always come back to their close losses and where we could have been. They think they should be in the 8, but at the start of the year they were happy to be out of the bottom 4. So, there's good signs for Essendon.
They must be doing good things on and off the field there. But we did a little bit of a poll. We threw that out. We're going to get the graphic up on the screen. And for those listening at home on the podcast, who's doing the most damage to their code? Stephen Hocking or Peter V'landys? And about 383 of our followers completed this one, and 68.4% have voted Peter V'landys over Hocking, 31.6%. So that's our sting in the tail this week. What is going on at the moment with this unrest amongst the fans?
Well, I just think I don't know. It's almost becoming weekly at the moment. There's
it's a tit for tat. You'd think that the NRL and AFL are in competition with each other.
Yeah, it's a worse off at the moment. It really is. We're probably not as privy down here media wise to the NRL goings on, but obviously we get a lot of feedback.
Oh, on Twitter, I've never seen it like it.
True. I mean, yeah, but we don't. Well, I guess we don't get the same exposure. I mean, we can watch the shows on Foxtel and stuff. We do get a lot of feedback almost hourly from Top Rope. He's got a long list of the greatest hits going on at the moment. His man V'landys. But the AFL of what we see down here, they've had as many issues so far through 10 rounds as they've had in most years. And after coming through COVID last year, where I thought they did an exceptional job in real trying conditions. They did a lot of things right last year. This year's been nothing short of a debacle so far for them. They can't seem to get much right, and now they've got real issues internally with I think Steve Hocking. He's one man, but he's the head of it, and there's a lot of things going wrong under his management. And now what's gone on this week with the tribunal is as confusing for players and fans. And you see Jack Riewoldt, Eddie Betts on TV last night. They don't know which way decisions are going to go. They don't know how to tackle anymore. So now you're starting to cut into the fabric of the game, and players are being taught one way, and all of a sudden you want to change. It's not as easy as you think. And then when we have 2 players that get concussed from different incidents, they suspend them both, which doesn't show the tribunal doing its job right. Then they let one off. I think being a contact sport, things are going to happen, and unless the intent is malice, I don't see how you can get suspended.
They're just always going to happen, these accidents. Like Lockie Plowman, if you're running for the ball, you don't know if you're going to beat that player or mark the ball or be there before him. And so you've got a split second. I was taught from a very early age to protect yourself when you go to the contest or you'll get hurt. And if
Be only naturally, I mean, they love showing it in
brace.
slow motion, but if you show it in normal speed,
it's fine.
a human always braces upon contact. It doesn't matter
That's
what
what
they're
you're
going
meant
to
to
hit, whether it's a moving object or you run into something. And, you know, I've heard some commentators talking about, commentators talking about he should have gone the punch. Well, when it's shown in slow-mo, his fist actually hits the ball. So at the end of the day, he actually does spoil the ball. Unfortunately, his shoulder makes contact with his head coming back, and as a result, unfortunately, he gets suspended. But if he doesn't get concussed, there's no free kick in it. It's play on, and it's actually a great contest between two boys showing great courage. So they've got it wrong. You know, plain and simple, they've got it wrong. Whether the rules are set up that way or not, it's not how we want to see the game by the players playing it or the fans watching it.
An interesting one was Lockie Hunter. He took a really courageous mark. He went back with a fly to the ball, and nearly his own player, Jason Johannesson, nearly collected him. So what happens if Johannesson knocks him out by accident because he's going 100 miles an hour at the ball and he gets knocked out? Do we start to give him a week? Because if it's a result-based system, well, you start rubbing out players from the same team. If they want to completely eradicate all these accidents from concussion, like, it doesn't make any sense that this is a contact sport. If you said it, I think you said it about 8 weeks ago. If the AFL are worried about head injuries, put everyone in helmets.
Yeah.
If they're worried about concussion, if the insurance companies are cracking down, not just in AFL, in NRL, make helmets mandatory and see what happens. Players will strike and players will revolt. And I tell you what's happening up in the NRL at the moment, the Sydney Roosters players, they're starting to go up in arms, and I can't wait to talk to Top Rope about it later. Like Victor Radley, Gus Gould's starting to throw haymakers at Peter V'landys. He's got him offside. The Roosters players are starting to be up in arms, and they targeted their halfback, Walker, on the weekend, and Victor Radley went to fly the flag. I tell you what,
it was a classic sucking job almost, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They went after the small bloke, expecting the Roosters to stand up for their man, which is what you do in any team sport. You got to protect your own. And, you know, at the end of the day, they won out against the Roosters because now they've got two key players on suspension going forward. So, you know, it's, again, whether it's in the spirit of the game, you know, the fans and the players both have the same expectations. Unfortunately, the rules governing the two bodies of the sports at the moment aren't backing them up for the contest, in my opinion. So, yeah, your first step is to definitely, I would say, wear mouth guards and helmets.
50%. It was reported the other day on one of those review shows that 50% of AFL players aren't wearing mouth guards.
Yeah, so how can they come out and, you know, I understand for juniors, they come out and they want to give the mantra that it's player safety and all this and how it looks for juniors coming through, and then you turn around and you say, we're not wearing a mouth guard. You know, and if players, especially after players have a concussion, I think helmets going forward should definitely be mandatory on a player. That should be the very least that the AFL should impose, in my opinion. You know, you have players with several concussions. Some players get unlucky. Some people just play those positions, I guess, where they're, you know...
More susceptible.
Yeah, they're more susceptible. Some players go through 10, 12 years without getting concussed at all. So we understand it's not for everyone, but some players, you know, like Paul McCartan from St Kilda, remember Cozzy from St Kilda going back a while, just used to get knocked out on a bi-weekly basis.
Dunstall used to wear a helmet?
Yeah, so I don't understand why that rule's not in place. If they're serious about it, then at least show some conviction and at least trial it for a year. Why can't they trial it for a year? That everyone has to wear mouth guards, everyone has to wear helmets, and see how far the concussion rate actually drops. Yeah, there's things that they can be doing, I think. So we'll see.
It's an absolute mess at the moment, and that goes across both codes, so can't wait to talk to Top Rope Tedeschi. We're going to have a look at Round 11 AFL, Round 12 with Top Rope Tedeschi. The charity bet lock of the week, as we said, the D's cost Mark. He was about to shoot for the 5K mark, and the Roosters upset the apple cart for me and Top Rope. The Broncos, wow, they've found another gear somehow, and it's French Open time, and Ace... is going to join us. That's Steve Quick, and he's going to have a look at the action at Roland Garros. It feels like an eternity since we've had a big Grand Slam, so can't wait for that. Mark used to trade tennis for Pinnacle, so he'll give his insights there. Make sure you check out puntingform.com.au. They've done some upgrades at the moment for their sectional pro form subscribers. They've included some new data, some barrier and lane information, and that's for track bias, and they've also updated jockey and trainer statistics. So I think it's around $2.97 per month. There's a lot of people on the Twitter sphere, and myself included, punting form. Without that, it is a massive, massive game changer. I couldn't do the form without it. So make sure you check out their latest updates. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and we'll come back and preview all of AFL Round 11. Welcome back to Little Birdie Podcast. I'm your host, Scoot. I'm joined by the Kid MG, and it's AFL Round 11 time. Coronavirus has hit Melbourne, so all of a sudden the fans could be locked out of Western Bulldogs versus Melbourne. You'd be sick if you're a Melbourne supporter. You finally got a Friday night blockbuster. You're top of the table with the Bulldogs, and you just want to get sardine into Marvel Stadium, and all of a sudden the coronavirus strikes. Let's have a look at the market, courtesy of Top Sport. $1.63 the Bulldogs, the D's $2.33, the Lions 6.5. Fascinating match this. Yeah, D's off a loss over in Adelaide. What price would they have been if they had a won?
I just think they would have been around Pick'em. I think 2 weeks ago when everyone thought Melbourne would take care of Adelaide, which are strong favourites to do. The game was tracking to be about a Pick'em, and I think that's what it would have been. It's not too far from that. You can't win every game, we've already seen a slight indication that it's come back from Melbourne. Bulldogs opened at -7.5. We've seen some bookies this morning go to -5.5. So I think that's about right. I think anywhere from that 4 to 6 range for the Bulldogs, being at the Dome as opposed to the MCG. If it was at the MCG, I think Melbourne would be slight favourites.
So how was this game won or lost? Who needs to fire for the Bulldogs to win?
I just think they need to keep going the way they are, the Bulldogs. I think they're chock full of confidence. You've seen, they've got a lot of stats going for it at the moment. They're actually the number one offence, number one defence in the comp, which after 10 rounds is unusual.
Yeah, not a bad effort.
Yeah, it's not a bad effort. You're normally one or the other. To have both covered, and especially have a midfield that's got the Brownlow favourite, and also I think about the 4th or 5th favourite as well. So they've got a lot of positives going. And they've got a little bit of an injury list as well. They're not by any means full strength. Yeah,
Dunkley.
Well, they lost to Treloar this week, but yeah, obviously Dunkley. They've had English missing.
When's he back?
I'd like to see him back this week. I think he's, obviously with the concussion, he had a bad one, so I think he's missed about 3 or 4 weeks now. So obviously they're just taking his time. Hopefully he's back for this. I'm sure he wants to be a part of this contest as well. This will be, disappointing for the players actually, and the fans, because it hopefully would have been close to a full house. And now, who knows, the way Melbourne's tracking at the moment with the news in the last 24 hours, they might be playing in front of an empty stadium, which would be disappointing for a lot of people. But on the Bulldogs side, I don't think they need to change too much. I think they'll be very confident at the Dome. They get perfect conditions, which they're used to. It suits their Harlem Globetrotters kind of ball movement at the moment. But they'll be matched against a dominant midfield. Let's give credit where credit's due. I know they lost last week. Melbourne's midfield is as good as any in the comp. With Gawn, Oliver's on fire, and Petrarca, they'll give the Bulldogs all they can handle. So this will be a classic matchup. I think I'm looking forward to watching it, even if the fans can't be there.
It's an interesting one. I think the early talk is you can have 85% of the crowd if the roof's open, and then 50% crowd if the roof's shut.
Yeah.
If they do open the roof, who's more suited? Or does it make any difference whatsoever?
The weather won't have an impact in terms of what the forecast is for Melbourne, even if the roof is open, so it's not going to change it to a wet weather. I just think the Bulldogs play the ground well, they're set up for it and they're used to it. So they've definitely got the advantage at the Dome. But Melbourne aren't going to be intimidated or scared. They're off the back of a loss, so they'll be keen not to lose 2 in a row and lose too much traction either. And also they want to be tested by what is the best team in the comp at the moment. So this will be a cracker on Friday night. Looking forward to it.
So what's your lean?
No, I think the market's spot on around the 5. That's what I came up with. I do think there'll be some scoring in this game. I think the total's a touch low, being at the Dome. Dome's got a good record this year for overs v unders. They're two offensive sides, and I think there'll be enough points in this game to cover the 164.
Another team that's absolutely flying at the moment is the Brisbane Lions. They take on the GWS Giants at home, 2:10 on Saturday afternoon at the Gabatoir. The Lions are $1.19, $5 the Greater Western Sydney, and the Lions been nibbled a bit there. It's been 29.5 into 28.5. The total's 167.5. They're a bit of a yo-yo, the GWS Giants. Wobbled early, but they've got a couple of decent scalps.
Yep.
Can they cover here?
Yeah, no, these are two good sides that have made recoveries. Actually, Brisbane...
They had a tough draw, the Bears, early. Oh, sorry, the Lions.
The Bears. Listen, they got off to a 1-3 start, and a few people were chucking the towel in them. I think, if you remember correctly, on one of the shows, they got out to $1.83 for the final 8.
You snapped it up?
Had a nibble on it. Wish we invested more, a bit like cryptocurrency, really. When it stares you in the face, knock it down. Now I think they're into $1.02, so, bookies can pay out on that anytime they want. To be good to release the money for the punters, let them reinvest. But now Melbourne have won 6 on the trot now. Brisbane have won 6 on the trot now, and they're going through their gears. Very good signs for Brisbane when, considering the calibre of players they've got to come back into their side. And this would have been seen as a lopsided matchup a couple of weeks ago. As you said, the Giants now... their recovery, though, I thought they were pretty good against West Coast. It was a high error rate game. The pressure didn't seem overly high. I just don't think the skills are up to it, and West Coast's away record is obviously pretty average at the moment. But good win for the Giants. They're going well. And there is one note when you're going through to do the form. They've won their last 5 at the Gabba. So they'll hold no fears going up there to play. For whatever reason, maybe they like the extra sunshine up there. So I think at the line, I think Brisbane will win the game. I think Brisbane will win the game, but I think they put up 29.5. It's a fair start for Giants.
I like them during the day too. I think it's a bit of an edge, the Brisbane sides at 100%. Night. But I think they're a better chance to cover with the dry conditions.
Yeah, the stats show both the Queensland teams at night. Their records are better just because of the humidity. Obviously, they train in it, and the ball's a bit more slippery for sides who aren't used to it. So, it's a very good point, Nico. The Giants are up there during the day. They'll get nice, dry weather. I think Brisbane is still going too well, but I think they'll give them a good account of themselves, the Giants.
And looks like you've whizzed past the Hawks again. Disappointing. The Gold Coast Suns and the Hawks up at Darwin. I thought the Hawks could finally, if Alistair Clarkson's trying, I thought they could topple the Suns. So a little bit of a roughie for me there. The Hawkers at the 280 at Top Sport. But okay, we'll only preview the blockbusters. So we'll skip across.
The AFL tried to hide that game. They sent it as far as Darwin to hide it. So, you'll be one of the few watching that game, I think. Up in slippery conditions.
Stewie Jew under pressure? No, he's not under any pressure.
He's not.
Do you think the expansion clubs cop less criticism?
The AFL monitor it more. Yeah, they allow less criticism. The media would want to go after him. I mean, they have no issue going after Leon Cameron for the Giants. They have him out the door about the last 3 years, I think. So all of a sudden, I haven't heard anything about Leon Cameron for about 6 weeks. So his job must be safe again. Stewie Jew has to be. I just think it's not even Stewie Jew. I think it's a cultural thing at the Gold Coast. Their pattern over the last couple of years now of getting off to a very good month. First 4 or 5 weeks, and then their win-loss record after that's atrocious, and it's continuing again. So I'm not sure at the Gold Coast, but if Stewie Jew falls away badly this year, he's one on the chopping block for sure. Yeah,
the Magic Millions time, we saw him down at the Burleigh Pavilion out of season, so maybe they need to go to the Burleigh Pavilion on a weekly basis to find their form. If they start the season really well, maybe just go out to the Burleigh Pavilion every week, boys. I know one of the King boys absolutely loves it up there, but all right, let's kick across the West Coast and Essendon. Oh, yuck. West Coast, they are on the nose for me big time. I've lost all hope. $1.24 Eagles. $4.25 the Bombers seems absolutely massive here. And the line again, I think it's 30.5 into 26.5 already. That may be some of my money. And an odd one here. The total's 143.5. I tell you what, there's some big lines with some very small totals. Yeah. There's a bit of a weather watch here, is it?
There's a weather watch. We were active yesterday.
I'm trying to bring you into the show.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, the subtlety I missed. There was. They made an error yesterday. The bookies. The lead out was actually 163 this total for the early shoppers that do their due diligence in the games.
What? Check the weather.
Check the weather. Yeah, it's an important part, especially when you're putting up totals. To put up 163.5 was a grave error with the weather report that we see.
If you're a head trader and you're on the golf course on a Monday or a Tuesday, depending on when you set your lines, you need to call your 2IC and say, "Hey, mate, have you checked the weather this week and have you adjusted the totals and adjusted the lines?"
No. Now I'm out of the game. I hope they play golf Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I think little Birdie should start holding corporate golf days for the traders on those days because there was a mistake made and then there was some sleepy bookies as well with the weather worsening. So, but punters need to follow through on these things because yes, last week as you made mention the Perth rain for last week's game, the total moved over 20 points, and then came game time when you're watching the radar. And even as bad a day as I was having on the Saturday, I was still able to watch the weather and got some release actually because the rain dissipated on the weather map. Total stayed 131, 132 and covered by about 50 points. So, it's definitely a part of the game you've got to watch. And, there's a clear edge for those who do as opposed to those who don't. So this totals effectively moved 20 points. But even yesterday we had a couple of bookies that wanted to stick fat around the 155, allowed some wagers in for the punters. And now we're sitting around 143, 144. But again, you've got to monitor the weather going through because no guarantee the rain will hold. We're still 4 days away. And we'll see what shakes out. But yeah, there's some good middle opportunities.
How does the wet weather suit Essendon? You've got West Coast and their big forwards. That could bring them down to size. And I think I might spec the Bombers at 4.25 here. Traditional rivals. Well,
you've already spec'd them at the plus 30. We, again, with the total thinking that I think the total will still start in the 130s like last week. I think with that weather report, I think we're still a goal away from where it'll be from bottoming out. And the line at plus 30, to relation to the total is just too big. West Coast won't hold any fear with the rain. Their forwards, Darling's an exceptional wet weather footballer. He reminds me, not the same calibre of Carey, but he does play exceptional in the wet. Darling's got very good hands, and Kennedy's also a very good clunker. And my boy Allen, he doesn't mind the wet either. But where it brings Essendon into the game is their midfield is on fire at the moment. And you saw last week against the Giants, the West Coast are terrible at getting the clearances, and Essendon are on fire in the clearances. So I think it's a big advantage Essendon having those three that we mentioned: Parrish, Merritt, and McGrath. And, it'll give Essendon a good starting point. And they'll be, again, West Coast at home, they grow a leg. They'll be hard to beat, but the line's big. So, I think West Coast to win for multi-punters head-to-head, but I think the line at the, even still at the plus 26, they'll give you good sight.
Bombers plus, and I sort of tuned out after Mark mentioned Wayne Carey and Jack Darling in the first sentence that I just sort of switched off. I just had a little bit of a mental rest there. Port Adelaide versus Fremantle on Sunday afternoon at Adelaide Oval. We've got Port Power 123, Fremantle Dockers 440, 27.5 the line there, and 156.5 the total. I'll tell you what, if you're backing the miners here, you'd hope that Port Adelaide haven't got COVID and they jump right out of the blocks here. They were pathetic in the first half. The unpower-like, I thought. What are your thoughts on this match, Mark?
I'm hoping you don't clip that up during the week that I've compared Carey to Darling.
The magic of media.
You're listening Tetley. I did pre-emphasise by saying it before I said it. It was wet weather that I was talking to. Anyway, to finish off the round, we've got Port and Freo. They're up and down sides, aren't they, these two? But again, Port going back to home, it's a big advantage to them. But you can't say I'm overly enthused about this game. I think they're both low-rating sides. I'm not sure where Port Adelaide are at. They keep claiming they're a top four side. We're just waiting to see it. They should worry less about their prison bar jumpers and concentrate on actually winning football games and doing it in a style that the fans want to see as well. But I think the line and early markets came out 30 for Port. And it's just come back a couple of points again for Freo. I think Freo have been largely competitive, win or loss this year. and they do play a defensive game. And again, I don't see too many points in this game.
Okay. Better way to play the under.
I think the total, it's not out of whack by any stretch. I just think it's a little high, and I think if you're going to play the totals, play the under. And the same, I think Port you would expect to win at home, but I think this seems to be the pattern for the week that I think Fremantle will give you a real good side at the plus.
Yep. Yeah, it's a funny one. If Port feel like it, they can probably cover this total in a half of footy, and they can probably just jog.
They are flat track bullies, aren't they? Especially at home, they love beating up the lower sides.
They're the blockbuster games. It's a really odd week. It's hardly a blockbuster round, and let's just batten down the hatches down here in Melbourne and get through COVID. If you want more remarks stuff, you can get AFL Stings for the next 2 weeks for $33, or you can buy the full season for $199, and that takes you right through into the end of the year. Something that Mark has been dominating is the AFL futures. He's been on fire with the Western Bulldogs and the Brisbane Lions. They've now cleared out, or I think they should really clear out in the AFL Premiership market. Let's talk about that first in our buy, hold and sell segment where we talk about futures betting. The Bulldogs finally $5 favourites to win the flag. Odds up on the screen now, courtesy of topsport.com.au. And Brisbane Lions $6.25, the Cats $6.25, the Demons $6.25, the Tigers $6.75, Port Adelaide $7.25, Eagles $15, Greater Western Sydney $31, Swans $34. I'd definitely have Western Bulldogs and Brisbane Lions clear favourites. Slight edge to the Bulldogs, who are a Melbourne-based side. But, yeah, I could not back the Cats at the moment. I couldn't back the Tigers. I couldn't back Port Adelaide. But then again, the D's at $6.25. For me, with the MCG being their home ground, I think that would be the other side that I consider. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think, obviously Friday night's game will have a bearing.
Massive swing.
The winner of, I know the Bulldogs are now favourites currently, but obviously if they win, they'll be shortening up to probably around the 4.25 mark probably next week. But if Melbourne do get over the Bulldogs, then they'll be back into favouritism next week. So, yeah, those three aside, I think you summed it up when you gave the odds down. I think the strength at the moment is with the Bulldogs, Brisbane and Melbourne, especially if they get over the Bulldogs this week. I'd be definitely, if I was having one lay this week, it'd definitely be Geelong at the 6.25. They'll win this week. You would think, but then they've got 3 tough games coming up. So this is not the time if you like Geelong. You'll get a bigger price in a month's time for sure.
They got Port, Dogs, and Brisbane Lions after the bye.
Yes,
that's a horror run.
Yeah, it's a tough stat. So, when you're betting futures, if you have or haven't invested, or you trade it week to week or month to month, however you go about it, you definitely got to just forecast how the short term and the long term's going and how those teams are going around you. So right now, I couldn't, if you were just investing this week, as we suggested, Bulldogs, Brisbane and Melbourne would be your go, whoever you like in that game. And then I'd be Lane, Geelong, Richmond, and I couldn't be on Port Adelaide. I just don't think the way they're going, long term, they can win the flag.
It's an interesting one, the Brownlow medal market. Let's get these odds up on the screen now. And Clayton Oliver was the man you were all over last week. Marcus Bontempelli still holds favouritism here. The Doggies are going to win a lot of games. 365 at Top Sport. Christian Petrarca 580. Clayton Oliver 825. Martin $9, McRae $9, Hugh McCluggage, media is starting to get a hold of him, $9.75, Sam Walsh $12, Ollie Wines $13, Cam Guthrie $16, and much better the rest. The Bont tipped him up pre-season, and Petrarca a little bit of $19 there, about $17 Clayton. Ollie you're taking, you're probably just sitting pretty here and steer these 3 players into the harbour. If hopefully some listeners out there have jumped into Mark's Brownlow medal, you got a good book. You're jogging, aren't you?
Yeah, the book's going okay. It looks like you've done a bit of work with Tristan over the last couple of days. You've finally got your premiership market into the way you want it. Now you're getting the Brownlow market in the way you want it. I think now the market's starting to shape out
the way it should be.
Yeah, I think they're starting to get the right players. Dusty Martin, as was said, we've been strong on the lay side of Martin for probably about a month now. He did have one good game where he obviously get a 3, but I still think Martin should be around the double figures. He's given a bit of a lead away now, especially to Bontempelli. And Bontempelli's, as you said, being a winning side. Not that Richmond won't be, but just the odds comparison.
Polar.
The odds comparison with the gap they've got at the moment, I would still be taking the Bont money over Martin. I just think the top three there are tracking the best at the moment. Obviously, McRae and McCluggage aren't too far away. There's definitely some still good lays there, in my opinion. I think Sam Walsh, he had a three vote or a 2 vote on the weekend. It was against poor opposition. How he's $12 for the
Just not going to win enough games, are they?
Well, he's not going to win the Brownlow. I just don't understand how they get the rating in that short at the moment. And even, Travis Boak, I know he's a great pilot and stuff. So there is some buy and sells out there. I was keen. There was still, this week, some of the bookies still had $10, $11 up Oliver, and he's starting to get crunched in a bit. I still think he's a betting option, Oliver. I think he's right there with Bont at the moment on the leaderboard. And if I was having one bet, and I know you just don't want to keep launching into one player all the time, but I still think he's a value around that $8, $9 mark, Oliver, this week if I was having one bet.
Okay.
I'd just like to mention two smokies that I think Bont and Parrish from Essendon, around $29. I think his last 3 weeks have been very good. I think he's nearly polled best on ground all three. So for Essendon fans out there, something to cheer. I think Parrish at the each way odds. The other guy is in your team, Brisbane, is Jared Lyons.
Flying.
Now, no pot on McCluggage. He's obviously going enormous, but this guy's getting under the radar for sure. He's had a really good couple of weeks, and right now I think he sits inside the top 10 in votes. Neil's still a few weeks away, so around the $41, if you're starting your book or you want to have some insurance, I think Lyons, a bit of value each way at 41.
Tell you what, he's grown in stature, Jared Lyons, the last 12 months. He walks around the ground like he owns the place now. It's great to see. He's got so much swagger, this bloke. Yeah,
he's really grown into himself. A lot of people talk about, can't believe he just walked out of Gold Coast. They had a real good player there. He's gone down the road, so it's not like he's moved massively. He's a top tier midfielder, playing really consistent football in a really good side.
Speaking of swagger, my man Tex Walker kicks the sealer in the classic match against the D's last Saturday night. And we're talking about Coleman Medal now. Harry Mackay, $1.90 favourite. Wow, he's still crazy odds there. Taylor Walker, $6.50. Jack Darling, $7. Jack Rewalt, $10. $12, Aaron Norton. I love that bloke. Jeremy Cameron, $12. Matt Taberner, $13. Tomahawk, $13. Tommy Lynch, $13. Kennedy, Bruce, both on around that $15, $16 mark. It's there's a couple of bolters. Aaron Norton has just missed a consistency there. It still looks like you want to lay Harry, don't you? And
Norton could have kicked a bag, couldn't he? He missed a couple. He kicked 5 goals, 4. So he really could have made a statement with maybe 7 or 8 goals. And made his way up the leaderboard. He's not too far from Harry Mackay. I just look at this market and just the way it sits at the moment. I think Harry Mackay is just too short still. A bit like Tex for 3 or 4 weeks there. We just saw Tex was too short. I think he got into 250 or something, Tex Walker at some stage. Harry Mackay's been 210 evens and $1.90 the last 3 weeks. There's plenty around him. We're not halfway through the season yet.
He still looks sore on the weekend. He doesn't look 100%.
Yeah, I just think the bookies have got him too short now. Whether they've landed some big bets on him or something like that, I just think this market they got a little bit wrong, and I'd be happy to lay Mackay around that even money.
Might have to ring Teague and ask how Harry's going, see if he saw. Wonder if we'll get the truth. Make sure this weekend, if you're having a bet on round 11 matches, or in fact the AFL futures, you bet with Top Sport. They are a bookmaker you can trust. They've been in the game for 35 years. The guys up at the Gold Coast are our major sponsors, so make sure you get around topsport.com.au. Up next, we're going to talk rugby league with Top Rope Tedeschi. We're going to push his buttons. Gus Gould is now going after PVL. Radley's been banished out of the game. It's all happening in rugby league land. So we'll talk to Top Rope Tedeschi next. Welcome back to Little Birdie Podcast. I'm your host, Scoot. I'm here in studio with MG, the kid, and it's time to talk rugby league with Top Rope Tedeschi. We've banished Peter V'landys and the Sharon. We've got rid of the super imposition, and we've got Top Rope back in the flesh. We can see him. He's been banged up. He's been stitched up, and now he's back in the flesh. Top Rope, how are you, brother?
Absolutely flies. What a week it is. How good. Phil Mickelson, the Storm cover. How good sport, how good life.
Well, it's definitely all happening. The Twitter spheres are washing. The game of rugby league. I tell you what, the fabric. It's like Rex the Sausage Dog just ripping all the fluff out of the toys that I do my life on at Pet Balm every week. Rugby league's falling apart, Top Rope, so you need to get off that cloud. And we're just going to put a little graphic up on the screen now, and it's a tweet from Gus Gould last night. Repeat again, 2 years ago, Victor Radley was one of the most celebrated young talents in the game. Today, based on this decision, the NRL is saying, we don't want you in the new rugby league. Who makes these decisions, says Gus Gould. Victor Radley has been banished for going into bat for Sam Walker, and it's just disgraceful, Top Rope.
Well, Phil Gould also suggested Tariq Sims should be in the Origin side, so pretty sure Phil Gould's out of touch. So anything he says should be treated with the absolute disdain it deserves. He's an idiot, he's a fool, he's a washed-up dinosaur, and he's out the back door. So no one cares what he says. Rugby league is flying. Second highest rated game of all time on Saturday night. The Roosters Broncos. Absolutely flying. Don't worry about what the Twitter narcs say. Don't worry about what old-fashioned rugby league Twitter would have hated rugby league starting in 1908 if it was around. Would have hated everything since. The game is built on change. Yeah. Unlimited. It was unlimited tackles till the 1960s. Then it went to 4 tackles, 6 tackles. Yeah. The rules changed in rugby league. That's just like now. Victor Radley got the red mist on. Got the red mist on Saturday night. He lost the pot. Here's a tip, Victor Radley. You've never been allowed to hit high ever. The fact they allowed it was a disgrace. Victor Radley just needs to lower his tackling stuff. He's leaving his feet and launching his shoulder at people's heads. Sorry, Victor Radley, that's not part of rugby league. Victor Radley will be celebrated in the game for his fierceness and ferocious hits, but he does them legally. And you know what? To be honest, I also celebrated the fact he had to be the first bloke in history to be put on report 4 times in the one game. Well done, Victor Radley. The game's celebrating it.
Oh, Top Rope, but if we tackle too low, there'll be offloads galore. There's no solution there.
No one's saying you've got to tackle around the ankle. Just tackle below the neck. They're not holding the ball above their head.
What about
the ribcage?
What about Angus Crichton? 2 weeks for dangerous contact. Please, it's touch footy out there.
Oh, come on. If you want to watch touch footy, you go watch the AFL. Watch a real tough game, you watch rugby league. Come on. It's I think for the most part, I thought the referees were particularly measured last weekend. I do think that Peter Goff, the ref in charge of the Roosters game, lost the plot a little bit. To be fair to him, though, to be his 10th first grade game, it's for the most part, I thought it was pretty consistently meted out rule that if you hit someone in the head with forceful contact, you put in the sin bin. There's nothing to argue with it. Like it's a black and white rule, and if it happens, you go. And I thought rugby league last week was very good last week. I thought the Broncos Roosters game was an outstanding spectacle, regardless of how many people got sent to the bin. So rugby league absolutely flying, and we got $1 grand to thank for it. PVL, well done, great man.
But the Top Rope, the fans are up and about, whether it's on Twitter or not, is because the rules have been changed mid-season. So when you say rugby league's built on change, shouldn't it be done prior to the season starting so it's at least consistent going through? Like, what are you pro or for against? Sorry, the rules being changed
mid-year.
The rules haven't been changed.
Well, the implementation of it has.
The policing of the rules have been changed.
Yeah, so why wouldn't that have been done at the start of the season?
So I'll give you. It should have been done at the start of the season. It should never have got to this place.
Yeah, okay.
It should never have got to this place. But hypothetical. Let's just go back in time 3 weeks when James Tedeschi was taken out in that Parramatta game with a shoulder by Nia Corey, and then it was knees back to punch Drew Hutchison's lung, and nothing was done about it by the video ref of the bunker. 3 weeks ago, everyone was up in arms. How did this not get sent off? Where is the send-off? Why is nothing being done about this? We've got to protect their game staff. Had they just done what the previous administration did and just gone down that path and done nothing, the NRL would have been absolutely slammed. You know what? These fans, there is no pleasing them. But there is actually no outs. You're playing dead in a game of poker with these fans. But as Jack Gibson once said, you listen to the fans enough, you'll be sitting with them soon. And you know what? This is actual proper leadership. Is it ideal that it was done mid-season? No, it should have been done. And PVL gave too much leeway to his referees and the football department of the NRL, thinking that they could clean up the game. They didn't. He stepped in, and he's done a great job. And I think, this will be for the betterment of rugby league.
Okay. 29 at the judiciary last night. It is a bit of a crossroads at rugby league headquarters. It'll be interesting to see how it all washes out. It's across both codes. Both codes are just trying to stamp out this head high contact and concussions. But it's a funny one. These accidental collisions that are causing all this havoc. Now, something a little bit more positive. Mo Fawika from the Gold Coast Titans is stamping his claim. I tell you what, some of his barge is absolutely sensational. This kid's got a lot of flair.
He's one of your favourites, isn't he? Big Mo Fawika. He comes on. He's just a hustling, bustling machine and just gets through. Now, to be fair, to put this into context, it was only against Canterbury. It was only against the Bulldogs. It wasn't a real first-grade side. So let's put that in context. But you've got to say he's flying. He will be back in Origin this year, you'd think. And it was just an outstanding try. But if you're after someone on the up and comer, Scoot and MG, look out for this kid called Franklin Pele. Do a little Twitter search for him. He's tried for Newtown on the weekend. Got the ball in his own half, about 70 out. Ran through the entire team like he was a big kid playing under sixes. Scored a try. It was absolutely astonishing. So if you like Big Mo, you're going to love Franklin Pele. May make his first grade debut this week. Named in the extended reserves for Cronulla.
One to watch there. And a little bit of a trumpet blow from Top Rope. We caught on Twitter. He's had a bit of a pot shot at Gus Gould and his Origin selection. So next week, we're going to put Top Rope Tedeschi's Origin side against a couple of experts. And I think Top Rope off air yesterday said that his Origin side would get an 11.5 point start against, or a minus there, against Gus Gould's. That's how disappointed with Gus's side Top Rope is. So we'll put them...
To be fair, I just had 2 players suspended, so I just had Radley and Crichton suspended, so I'm going to have to make some changes.
Oh, wow. Radley and Crichton suspended from Origin. There you go. Maybe the game... I'll leave it for the fans to vote with their feet. I'm forecasting PVL won't see out the year at Rugby League Land. I think he'll move on to greener pastures.
What can I get on that he'll be there in 2040? I'll take extended lines all the way through. PVL will be there when he dies.
Be careful. Top Rope's got more than you.
It's been hard to run him out of racing, so who knows? Anyway, Hall of Fame. We'll steer the ship into some more positive chat. MG, Hall of Fame this year? This week, sorry?
I'm surprised you're coming for me. Top Rope, there's no way he's getting swayed. There can only be one option this week to go in. His old mate Lefty is head and shoulders. I believe he's already in, though.
I think he can go in twice.
He can go in twice. So is he breaking new ground here?
He would be. I think he's
him and Munster,
a worthy nominee. But what about this other bloke? Barney Curley has been suggested by many of our fans. This trainer, this punter. Have you got a Barney Curley story? He's famous for his Yankees, isn't he, Top Rope?
Loved his Yankees, but Barney Curley's definitely. I'd love to put Lefty in again. He's in there once. We will get him in again at some stage. But Barney Curley passed away this week at the age of 81. Bookie punter. His best coup was in 1975 at a racetrack called Bellewstown. It was pretty hard to get to race course, fairly isolated. And he sent a horse called Yellow Sam there. And he had a crew of punters across England and Ireland to load up on this Yellow Sam starting price, as it was back in the day. Yellow Sam was about 20 to 1 in the early markets. The only way to get a message to the course for bookies to bet back and kind of to notify the bookies on course that this thing needed to be shortened up was a single telephone box at the side of the course. Luckily for Barney, he'd paid someone off to occupy that phone box for the 20 to 30 minutes leading up to the race, in order to say that he was trying to take care of his great aunt and trying to track her down, who was very ill at the time. So no message cricket in or out of the race course. So all the money that went on at 20 on SP for Yellow Sam was on, jumped at 20-1, won by about 8 lengths going away, and stripped out, they reckon, about £20 million at the time.
Wow. That's
at
incredible.
The time. This was 1975. Wow. That is one of the great coups of all time. How amazing is that?
Barney Curley. And, I've seen some highlights of just him just being interviewed from various race calls after he's trained a winner or backed a winner. And I tell you what, I think Murray Baker's shifty, but this guy, he's got him absolutely cold. And those stories, they're just fantastic. Yeah. I've heard a lot of good stories about racetracks and when they were banning phones, and Alan Jones, some of the stings that he used to pull in the early days. There's been many, but Barney Curley, he's Pip Phil in the unpippable week of Hall of Fame. I tell you what, when it rains, it pours in Hall of Fame week, doesn't it? When Pappenhausen scored all those tries, he still didn't get there.
Lucky Phil's in, otherwise he'd be filthy.
He would be filthy.
He creates history and can't get in.
Oh, no. Well, luckily, we'll, there's always next week for Phil. Phil will definitely be getting back when we have a quiet week, which seems like a bit these days. But I absolutely love those Barney Curleys. And we're still going in 2014. And I hate to highlight what a good bloke he was, but he gave millions back to Africa, to kids in Africa, to maintain schools and hospitals. So, look, I don't like, hate to give out all the good news and what a good person he is, because that's not what this Hall of Fame is about. About what a punting legend he is, but he was a good bloke as well. So that's added to it. Just like Phil is, just like Phil.
Outstanding stuff. And let's talk about NRL round 12. Let's get on the serious business. Enough of the politics, enough of the giggles. Let's talk about the big hits here and the Storm. I tell you what, they're just absolutely jogging. Craig Bellamy is just the master. They're up at the Sunshine Coast. They're putting a line in. The boys are out there fishing. They go on the beach. I saw big Harry Grant just steaming out of the surf. Don't worry about Melbourne COVID. We're just going to bypass winter. Just skip it all together, and they'll be up at the Sunshine Coast all winter now. They're just too smart. It's a perfect recipe to take on Penrith in this year's grand final. Looks like these two sides are just head and shoulders above the rest. And I tell you what, more AFL clubs should relocate, and we might even relocate this studio up to Noosa or the Sunshine Coast and bring you along top rope. Yes. Melbourne Storm Thursday night at 10 to 8. It'll probably start at 8 o'clock. We've got the Storm away favourites here, $1.10. The Broncos, who have kicked into gear, $7.50 in the line, 20.5, over 50.5 points. Bookies are starting to clue on total points. They're all around the 50 mark now, top rope. But who do you like in this one?
MG, which way do you reckon I'm going?
Broncos plus.
So the last 2 weeks, look, I've got the worst of it. I backed the Storm early twice. They've had some key withdrawals come team naming time. On the wrong side of it, I've stuck that, and they've covered with ease on both occasions. It has been truly remarkable. They've covered 8 on the trot. Wow. They've scored 34 plus in 7 of their last 8. They covered last week against the Canberra Raiders side. Sure was missing players, but still a pretty handy side without Ryan Pappenhausen, Cameron Munster, Jerome Hughes, Harry Grant. That's their starting spine. One of their key backups, Riley Jacks, also out. They still covered. They scored 34 points on them. It was absolutely remarkable stuff last week. I'll be on. I could not get enough on the Storm this week, to be honest. Not only are the Storm the best team in the comp and covering like it's shelling peas at will, they have absolutely dominated the Broncos. They have covered 21 of the last 27 games against the Broncos. Average margin since 2008, 16.7. They've won 29 of the last 34. The Storm, 12-3 against the spread when they're a double-digit road favourite. The Broncos covered just 6 of their last 19 at Suncorp off a win. They don't hold form. Just get everything you got. Get some more, borrow it, get another mortgage out, do what you need to do. Gamble responsibly, of course, but it'd be irresponsible not to load up on the Melbourne Storm this week. They're going to win. They're going to cover.
There we have it. Surprise, surprise, Melbourne Storm minus, but the stats just back us up there. Why wouldn't you just keep backing this absolute juggernaut that is the Storm? Now, there's two sides that have come off an absolute shellacking for our next blockbuster of the week. It's Saturday afternoon, 5:30 at Stadium Australia. My Rabbitohs, the Boonois, fresh from a lacklustre performance, is an understatement at Dubbo. $1.68 the Rabbits. Parramatta Eels, awful last week. Also $2.20 and the line 2.5. The total again, 50.5. Thoughts here, Top Rope?
I will be getting on South Sydney here at the minus. Still a stat for the punters out there. Teams off conceding 50 points, they cover it 62% the next week. When they're a favourite, they cover it 64%. So I think it's a good spot for South. South have been dreadful defensively the last 2 weeks, or 2 of the last 3 weeks. But Latrell's back, should be fitting out, and Cameron Murray, absolute key in for South. So I am pretty keen on the Bunnies this week. The Eels, they do not bounce back off poor defensive showings. Cover just 3 of 13 off conceding 16 plus. Dylan Brown's still out. I think the South will win this and will win this pretty easily.
That is music to my ears. The Saturday night blockbuster. Wow, there's some worrying signs at Canberra. They are a bit of a rabble at the moment, and we've already touched upon 2 big outs, Crichton and Radley for the Roosters there. $1.27 the Roosters, Raiders $3.75. The line 11.5. There's a little bit of a nibble for the minus there, and 49.5, and that's at Central Coast Stadium, 7:30 Saturday night. Top Rope.
The Raiders are a bigger rabble than Gus's Origin team. That's how bad they are. George Williams has gone back home. Their star halfback. He apparently wasn't happy about it. So there's all that kind of drama. There's too much going on in Canberra. They've got a few big ins, but you can't have them at the moment. They've covered just twice this year. Absolute mess. They are off the coach. Something chronic. So I'll be on the Chooks here. They're a good bounce back team. They've covered 10 of 13 for double-digit loss. I am worried about Victor Radley being out, Angus Crichton being out. The depth is well and truly being stretched right now, but I'd rather be on the Roosters minus than the Raiders plus here for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Now, Sunday afternoon, the 4 o'clock fixture there at McDonald Jones Stadium is Newcastle Knights against Manly Seagulls, and big away favourite here, Manly $1.25. $3.95 the Knights, and 11.5, and the minus has been nibbled here, 52.5. And I went into I did a little bit of Turbo research, and there was a shrewd move a couple of years ago when the Turbo brothers were offered $10 million between them for a 5-year deal. I think it was reported a couple of years ago. Looks a shrewd move now, doesn't it, Top Rope?
Looks a very sharp. Looks a very sharp move now. Tommy Turbo scored in every game this year. Scored in 6 straight games this year. Modern day record is 10, held by Phil Blake in 1983. Fred Totty got there 15 in a row in the 30s. You've got to be on Manly here, don't you? They are absolutely playing like an elite team at the moment. They've won 6 of their last 7, covered 7 straight. Put the hat-trick job on Parramatta last week. They were inspired by Bob Fulton. His passing, his funeral will be coming up soon. You'd think they would still be pretty front and centre. They hold form, covered 22 of 34 off a win, covered 6 straight away from rookie. The Knights are a disgrace. They are an utter disgrace. Kalen Ponga's back. Maybe he'll do something, but they are a poorly coached, absolute rabble at the moment. They've covered just 7 of their last 22 of conceding 16 plus, 5 of their last 16 when they're a home underdog. So I am pretty keen to take the Knights on. I reckon they are a bottom 4 team at the moment, and Manly are looking like an elite team. So I will be jumping on the minus here.
It's Mark. I think Mark's first love is Pappenhausen and Storm, and then I think his second love is definitely Manly and the Turbos. I tell you what, it gets a lot of airtime, and I think maybe we might just change this show completely and just have it the Turbo time and the Storm time. I think we just need to change the whole segment.
I see this week, Top Rope, that a lot of the totals have now hit over north of 50.
Yeah, they've clued on, haven't they?
The bookies are
unprecedented.
Yeah, they've taken a month to catch up, but they're finally getting there.
It's always a sad time when the bookies finally catch up to where everything goes. So the edge we've had over the last few weeks, 25 of the last 32 games, have gone over the total. So
Wow.
it's been a very good month for overs punters. We'll have to be a little bit more measured this week.
Yeah.
52.5 is a very big line. Like daytime footy could get there. Like not definitely not ruling out the Newcastle Manly game as going over, but I'll be taking a much more measured approach to all of these totals. Like even last week, you saw the Roosters Broncos game made up 50, went under. That's that's. I don't have all. I've only got the stats for 2008. I'm pretty happy to say with a fair bit of confidence that's never happened in the history of rugby league. So.
Yeah, so the edge is gone now in the totals that the punters can now just pull up and see how the next maybe week or two shake out.
I would think so. I'm not going to be steaming into the unders, but I'll be trying to find a few unders games this week.
Yep.
50 is a big line, and the problem with the 50 is like if you like a game to score a lot of tries, and there will be games that score a lot of tries, I'd almost be backing the over in the try markets. For example, like the 50 might be over 9.5 tries at $1.91 or something. I'll be more inclined to do that. Some of the goal kicking has been horrific this year. Like you have a look at the Roosters last week. Sam Walker you couldn't pay him to kick a goal. Some of these ordinary teams like like Valentine Holmes missed a heat for the Cowboys last week. That almost went under until a late try sent it over. So all of a sudden, goal kicking is becoming a lot more important in these totals, and I'm probably going to be looking at the over number of try markets rather than the total points pass, because swinging on goal kicking is not how you want to win or lose these bets.
Sounds like the NRL goal kicking's going like the AFL. It's a bit wayward. But they normally don't miss.
A little bit of an apology for Sam Walker. He's had the absolute stuffing knocked out of him by Pengai. As an absolute pissant on the AFL field, I know what it's like to be targeted as a small player. So that's where the protection needs to go to players like Sam Walker.
Melbourne Storm need Pappenhausen back goal kicking because their goal kicking's been... he's a pissant.
But they need him bad.
When is the Pappenhausen due back? Top rope. Enough of the holiday.
He won't be back till after Origin 1. They reckon he won't play until after Origin 1, so probably another month away, sadly.
Geez, he's going to be fresh the back end of the season. Look out.
Fresh for it.
You'd still respect him top try scorer, wouldn't you, for the year? Patrick to finish him off, he's flying.
Speaking of flying or not flying is our Lock of the Week segment. We are absolutely lackluster. The Chooks absolutely hammered us last week. And the Melbourne Demons, MG's got head in hands. He still can't believe the D's got rolled last week. So they knocked him out. The Roosters both collected Top Rope and I. So I'm going to lead us off. I'm going to lead us off with a Ric Flair top turnbuckle move for Lock of the Week. It's getting desperate stages here. We're only halfway through the season, so we've got plenty of time. But I just want to go a couple of dogs off the stick. May as well try something a little bit different here. I'm going to have my 200 for raise.org.au, who do an amazing job for mentoring kids in their youth to get them back on the right track. And I'm going to have that 200 on Essendon Bombers heads up at the 425. All up, my Hawkers in Darwin at 280. And that's $11.90 for my Lock of the Week. I'm saying that the Gold Coast Suns and the Eagles will get rolled over, and my 200 will turn into $2,380 for charity. And you blokes think I'm an idiot now, but you watch what happens after this weekend. MG, stop shaking your head.
Top Rope, he missed the brief of the email. He cried for the first 3 weeks saying, let me in the lock, let me in the lock. We sent him the email as the Lock of the Week, and now he's coming up with two Ric Flair outsiders.
Can't be going any worse.
We're meant to be making money for charity, Give him a chance.
Someone needs to get to the magical $5,000 mark so we can deposit for charity.
I was already planning for mine.
Hey?
I was already planning for mine last week. How did Melbourne lose to Adelaide by a point? Give me a spell. I feel like all the dominoes have been knocked over after I've just put the whole set together, and now I've got to start from scratch again. So, yeah, disappointing.
Feel like Victor Radley, robbed.
Yeah, it's a harsh game, this. I tell you what.
All right, who you got?
You want me to go? All right, I'm going to... because I can't put the Storm in, AFL only, I'm going to go overs in the first game, over 165.5, Bulldogs Melbourne, and then just try and pinch Geelong head-to-head at 125 and Richmond 119 to give me 282 for my 200, and I'm starting again.
That is so weak. Top Rope, bit better effort for you.
Bit of Ric Flair coming this week as well, double Ric Flair. I'm going to go to the Broncos Melbourne game, so we'll know by Thursday night how this slot has gone. We are going to go in the 1st to 50 market. We're going to go to Melbourne Storm, $6.
$200
Storm to get to 200 to get on the to get to at $6 to get to 50. We're at 1,200 that, and then we're just going to go for gold next week. We'll be 5,000 in 2 weeks.
That's what I like. Lock of the week, the Storm.
That's a lot of cheering. A lot of cheering for the Storm. I like
It's
it.
an easy cheer.
I like it.
They're always an easy cheer.
Yeah, I like it though.
Oh, it's the easiest thing in sport. Like, I had this Cameron Percy, PGA Tour player, talk about. He said something on Twitter like, when's gambling ever responsible? I just kind of went back, well, when you bet the Storm, that's when gambling's responsible.
That's true.
Oh,
Better than bank interest.
Fantastic stuff.
Better than bank interest.
Top roper, that Peter Volandy shirt, I want you to wash that for next week. It looks like you've been sleeping in it. It needs a bit of a rinse, big fella.
Sleeping in it.
All right, good luck this weekend on the punt, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys.
See you, top rope.
Oh, if you want more of Nick Tedeschi's action, you can go to the Little Birdie shop and pick up GGOA. It's a steal. Make sure you check out his stuff. He's absolutely on fire. He can find so many angles. He loves betting on a total, and he's made an absolute fortune on the Storm this week. So if you want all his unit plays, make sure you check that out. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll talk French Open tennis next. Welcome back to Little Birdie Podcast. I'm your host, Scoot, and I've got the Kid MG in studio, and we've got Ace Previews. We've got Steve Quick on the line to talk French Open tennis. It's been an eternity since we've been talking about tennis, and it's good to have it back at Roland Garros, the home of Rafa, the home of Clay. And I'll tell you what, listeners and viewers of the show would remember Steve-O from last year. He tipped up Iga Swiatek at $34 to win a slam last year. So I tell you what, you got to tune in, write down these notes, and listen very carefully. Welcome to the show. Welcome back, Steve.
Thanks very much for having me. It's not too much has really changed for Swiatek, except her decimal place has come in and she's 340 now.
How's the week been? As a Collingwood supporter, you must have got a little bit of a tickle against the Port Power, who were very lacklustre in the first half, but they found a way, and not much joy.
Yeah, look, it was a little bit of a tickle, but I'm just monitoring to make sure I don't have a tickle in the back of my throat based on the message I got from the DHHS overnight. So, yeah, that's a nice reward for going on and sticking with them and turning up. So we'll see what unfolds from all of that.
You'd be usually checking scores, or you jump on the phone to see what's happened in Europe or America overnight to check the tennis scores, and then you got a DHS COVID alert.
Yeah, I thought I was popular. I had a message, and I assumed it was either going to be U-Foods or some other stupid thing that I've signed up to at one point or another that's spamming me. But that was just telling me that, yep, I did go. I did watch Collingwood. I braced for that pain of quarters 2, 3, and 4 like most weeks, and now I get to monitor my symptoms for the next couple of days. So it's going to be great.
It's a sick beat, isn't it? Just salt in the wounds. You get beat by a point, and then you might have got COVID out of the defeat.
Shocking. Just... It sums up Collingwood's year, really, doesn't it?
Sums up the punt too.
Yeah.
Just when you think things are going bad, something else just kicks you in the teeth. You have to be resilient as punters, and someone who's very resilient is our man, Rafael Nadal. Let's have a look at the men's French Open mark odds, courtesy of TopSport on the screen now. Rafa, $1.85. Crazy odds. Novak Djokovic, $4.40. Tsitsipas, $6.75. Team, $14. Zverev, who's been very popular in COVID, $16. Rublev, $31. Yannick Sinner, $34. He's named after me. Aslan Karastev, $41. And that rounds out the major chances there. Roger Federer slipped down to $46. Wow.
Crazy.
Done and dusted there. Steve-O, you're the expert here. Tell us why Rafa is immoral.
It's tricky. I think he's sitting at currently about $1.85. So if you want to get involved in that for a fortnight, it's probably, I'm not going to steer you away from it. I think he's obviously got, if you have a 98% win record at the tournament over your career. I think it's
better than
generally
crypto.
bodes well for you. And the fact that, there were question marks about him late last year when they, switched the timing around and, was playing late in the year, still managed to, get through and not drop a set. So look, we are seeing, I think, in a lot of the lead up tournaments, yes, he is losing a couple of 3-setters, but this is what he's aiming for. And I think this is something he's aiming for more than any other year. I think when you look at Nadal, you look at Novak, their target is Grand Slams. So you can kind of take that into consideration, perhaps with some of the losses, but it's one thing to beat him in best of 3. It's a completely different game, I think, to be beating him in best of 5. But I think the way that the seedings are set up this year, there is the potential, I think, come 2 a.m. Friday morning when the draw comes out, that there may be a bit of value if you can pounce relatively quickly.
Did you want to just reel off your Nadal stats, Marcos? What is he 100 wins and 2 losses?
He is, yes.
That is unbelievable.
Poor record at the venue, isn't it? I mean, I played golf with Steve. We played golf with Steve last year, and we were just talking a bit of tennis, and we said I was trying to get into his head why the bookies keep wanting to pot or lay Nadal going into the French Open.
13-time winner.
He was 12 before we spoke to that, and we said coming up, it's a bit like back in the Melbourne Storm. It's they're automatic bets, and I liken Nadal to being trained by Bart Cummings for the French Open. He just keeps rocking up. He wins, regardless of form, injury. To beat Nadal over 5 sets on clay is mission impossible in tennis, and it has been. I think the only thing that, price point aside, the only thing that stops him is his age.
Well, Phil Mickelson's defied that.
100%. So does Nadal go the other way and find inspiration? I'm not saying he
needs it.
He needs it, yeah. But there's just that confidence level with Nadal that if you want to go to war over 5 sets, no players have the arsenal to go with it. He's lost twice in 102 outings and won 13 times. The price point, obviously the value, but at the end of the day, we'll sit there probably when he's holding the trophy up again and say,
how do we not take the $1.85 for our life?
I think so. So I don't know. That's my take on it. His record's too good. Until he loses one, I'm not going to drop off.
Now, Steve, you're the best with the dartboard here. Tell us who the best smoky is for those mad enough to bet against Nadal.
I think there's going to be more value, I think, and just looking at the names that we have kind of outside the known kind of top 4 or 5, where things get a little bit complicated here is that Daniil Medvedev is the 2nd seed. So he has made it very known that he doesn't enjoy playing on the clay. But that then means that Nadal and Djokovic could end up in the same half, potentially looking at how things are at the moment. So if that were to occur, I think you would then be able to look to, some names a little bit further down the lists, even like a Casper Ruud or a Christian Gurin, someone to maybe make a little bit of a run. I'm not saying they're going to beat Nadal if they were to meet, but I think if you can kind of get to the other side and find some big prices, even if there is a Zverev or a Rublev that could potentially find themselves in a decent pocket. Where that will open up a little bit more is if we magically get this quarter where Medvedev and Federer are the top 8 seeds in it. I think that's going to be something that you could attack. Alternately, if you find Dominic Thiem is the one that ends up with Rafael Nadal, then you're looking to maybe Novak at the 450 mark is value, working through to that point of then I would probably be looking to maybe get away from that position if he were to meet Rafa in a final.
It's a fascinating insight there. If you want to get more of Steve's stuff, jump on Twitter and find him. It's ace_previews. You can just tell by his insight there that he knows what he's talking about. What were you going to say, Mark?
No, I was just going to ask Steve. So when you set up, I know we're running through the to-win market. If you either like or don't Nadal or you want to invest, do you then look to when you're talking about the other side of the draw, do you look to markets of players to make the final, to make the semis, to make the quarters, to make your future bets?
Yeah, and I think when you're looking at that future or trying to set up even a trading spot there, look to players that are in the other half to Nadal in this instance. Even you could maybe make a case for the second quarter, but it's if you can get as far away from Nadal as possible, it's all well and good that, if your outright player is the hero that knocks him off early in the tournament, but I would rather someone else do the hard work and try and find someone who can kind of slip through with a decent draw. And even if it's, someone who hasn't been in any form whatsoever has been Diego Schwartzman, if he can find himself down the bottom there, he's one of those players that maybe that best of 5 component that we're dealing with here is going to be favouring him.
So yeah, Casper Rudd, $51, and Diego Schwartzman. So if you can pick off a couple of the other prop markets, there's definitely some different angles of attack, and you can still back Rafa, and then you can chip away at the other side of the draw. Fantastic insight there, and let's talk about the women's winner market. Odds courtesy of TopSport on the screen now. Iga Swiatek, $3.75 at TopSport. Definitely not $34. Ash Barty, $5.50. Arena Sabalenka, $8. Garbine Mergoza, $9.75. Asaka, $15. Svetlina, 22. Alina Slovenia.
Svetlina.
Yeah, $22. The broadcasters say it much better than me, nice and clean. Andrescu, $23. Goff is $23. Kvitova, $23. Serena Williams, $23. And Pliskova, $29. Vika Azarenka's down there at $29 also. Thoughts here, Ace?
I think when you look at it, you've got, Swiatek and Birdie at the top two. Again, looking at the seeding, there is a potential that they're both going to end up in the same quarter. So, if that were to occur, or even in the same half, that you can maybe look to some value somewhere else. This one's a bit tricky because, and you'll hear it said a lot that it is the most open women's Grand Slam in recent memory. And it is, but there's a whole bunch of either non-winners or players coming in with injury that just make this a whole lot more complicated. Barty's come in with injury. Andreescu's come in with injury. Asaka has barely played on clay, and when she has played on clay, it hasn't looked great. You continue to roll down. Serena Williams has looked pretty average in her time on court. So there isn't a lot of form there. If you could get someone, I think, some of the players who are a little bit more powerful but can cover the court reasonably well, if they can get through the tougher conditions that may be in store on the outside courts that are less protected, looking like even a Petra Kvitova or the like, I think if they can get to the last 8, I think they're a genuine chance once you move into that centre court, the potential for the roof to be shut and playing in better conditions. The likes of Kvitova or even Sabalenka, which I never thought I'd say that about her in a Grand Slam, but she's certainly playing well this year. I think they're some players to look for. Looking further down, if you're looking for unseeded players who might float in and cause an upset or two, 3 names I'd probably keep an eye on. Paula Badosa, who's just come off a recent title, Jill Teichmann, and even Fiona Ferro, who is a French woman who has, I think, had an injury cloud, but she's very good at protecting what that might be. She's obviously at her best on clay when you look at her results over the last 12 to 18 months. So there are 3 that I would be wanting my picks to be avoiding when the draw comes out on Friday.
What about you, Marcos? How do you tackle the women's versus the men's?
Well, I think the women's. I like betting in the women's, but I think the women's is generally hard. I'm not sure the most updated record, but there's been a lot of different winners in the last. Is it the 16, 20 tournaments or something? Now it's ranging. It hasn't been the domination that we've seen in say the 2 decades previous. Obviously, Serena dropping off, so there seems to be new winners more often than not, especially at the major level. It was the Swiatek unbelievable last year. For Steve to pick her out at $34 in the run she had, she was so dominant through winning that French Open. That's as good a performance as you will see. I know it's easy to say once they win a major, but the dominance that she performed, and especially the price she started, that was crazy. And she looks like she's gone on with it so far this year. And as Steve said, there's a lot of non-winners around. One I did want to ask about was Muguruza, who has had her time in the clay. What are your thoughts on her around the $10 mark?
She is the player that will generally get up and do her best at the bigger tournaments. My just worry for her is she has been injured. I think she bageled Putin-Saver in Charleston, and then a couple of games later pulled out with a knee injury. Again, had that flare up, I think, the other week playing against Pera, and then got wiped off the court by Svitolina. So I think she's the type of player she needs to be 100% and on firing on all cylinders for everything to work for her. but she falls into that category of players that you're just not 100% sure if she's completely fit. It might be the case of, if she does get a favourable draw, make a play for her. I'd rather get involved at the outright at a bigger price for a smaller stake than get involved in, trying to get a match to match when she's, giving up big handicaps early in the tournament.
Yeah. Also, Steve makes a great point. The French Open is a 2-week tournament. You have to be at your optimum of fitness because the clay is the toughest to get through, and you very rarely would.
Why is that? Because it's softer.
The longer points.
Okay.
Generally, it takes generally a lot more time on court to get through. The work on the body's definitely harder, and to back up as well. So someone like Serena Williams, I know she's well into her late of her career. She will have her eyes fixed for Wimbledon again. The clay's just a tune up. She'll have a throw at the stumps, but as a winning chance, she knows she can't get through 7 games on the clay anymore to win the tournament. So I'd be surprised on her. And generally the Americans don't go great on clay as a general rule anyway. You take Serena out of the mix and their clay record's not great. But anyone who Steve mentions in his forecast of having injuries, I'd stay well away from, because you can't carry injuries through in this tournament and win, as opposed to grass where you do get softer tournaments.
Anything to add there, Steve-O? Or?
No, I think that sums it up pretty well. I think it's worth keeping an eye on how these players are looking early in the tournament. Obviously, with the women's, you are seeing a little bit more, I guess, if you can find that value, you're seeing better prices in these outrights because they are playing best of 3. It's easy to knock off a top player. But, when you look through, trying to remember that some of the recent form, or, even looking back to the form of players at the French Open last year, we're playing in a completely different time of the year. It's a bit like the US Masters. They're different conditions at the moment in France compared to the end of last year. So, and it's going to be arguably a stronger field as well. There's more people who are invested in, traveling around with the tour at the moment. So it's worth keeping an eye out on how these players are looking early. And look, as we said, there's a couple of non-winners there that need things to go right. They need other players to play poorly, I think, to progress. And I think if you can look for someone who can, battle their way through those early stages and might enjoy the calmer conditions in week 2, then I think that's a good approach to take.
When you mention the court conditions, what's the weather and the court expected to play? What's your feel? I know we're a couple of days out still, but what does it kind of suit going through not only the different type of year, but heavy conditions as opposed to when it's cloudy or sun makes the court speed way different. So how are you looking at that going forward?
Yeah, I think one of the key things weather-wise, and that was the case in qualifying overnight actually, was it was incredibly windy. So, looking at players, and, there was a lot of talk from Australians around Tanazi Kokonakis, who's, come off a challenger title last week on clay, was knocked out in straight sets by Mackenzie McDonald. Just didn't handle the windier conditions. It can be a little bit heavier. It can be, a little bit tougher again. If it's not sunny and, you're not getting that ball really bouncing up and kicking up, it can become a bit of a slugfest, particularly for some of the bigger players. Conversely, if you can get someone who can hit through the clay enough, be able to, keep moving those players who are perhaps more reliant on their court coverage, then it can work to their advantage. But it's worth keeping an eye out on the conditions, but also what court that these players are playing on, because, they do have a roof now on centre court as well. So, looking at the likes of Djokovic and Nadal, there shouldn't be an opportunity to really get against them in any conditions that are unfavourable. But if you go to the outside, players like a Sabalenka, who hasn't handled the wind before, if she gets a windy day early, she's one that I would have on upset alert.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic, fascinating
it's good
insight
intel.
there.
Very
And
good intel.
you can get Ace's stuff for free. So at Ace_previews is his Twitter handle there, or you can just go to Little Birdie TV and we'll tag him in our post of this episode's show. And he doesn't take life too seriously, our man Ace. He takes his tennis very seriously, but if you see in his profile page on Twitter, you'll see someone's trolled him. You are a disgrace to tennis prediction. Obviously, Ganesh missed the $34 last year on Swiatek, so very funny work there from you, Ace. But fantastic. Thanks for joining us on the show. We'll give you an opportunity to have a look at them for the first couple of days, and we'll get you back on the show next week. And hopefully things are a little bit clearer on the women's side. And hopefully Rafa, the good thing is just going through his gears. But thanks for joining us yet again.
No worries. Thanks very much for having me.
Fantastic stuff. Looks like we've gone well overtime here at Little Birdie headquarters. It's a massive week, but we say that every week. It's just a cracking time to be betting at the moment. The European Summer of Sport is just starting to ramp up. We've had the golf last week. The tennis majors are starting to roll through, and it's going to be a big week in AFL and Rugby League, no doubt. The outrage will just keep on continuing with this concussion. It's all about it at the moment, and fingers crossed we can get some entertaining footy on the weekend. Make sure you follow us on Apple or on Spotify or SoundCloud, or just consume us on YouTube if you want to watch the show. Big thanks to Punting Form and Top Sport, and that's over for me.
Yeah, big show. Good luck, punters, this week.
Keep on betting. Stay calm.